Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I hope that everyone's doing well today. Again, welcome to our second episode of DEEN Talks. I hope that all is going well. It's always a blessing to see everybody here. This year, our theme of the program has changed. Now we're focusing on politics. We're trying to understand, and we're trying to get a lot of our speakers who are coming to our DEEN Talks are those that are in the political arena. And the goal and the idea is, how do we get the community more active and more engaging when it comes to voting, when it comes to knowing who is our politicians, on a local level, state level, or on a congressional level. And here, today's theme of the program is building the foundations. Now, it's very important to discuss and talk about why it's so important to be able to build strong foundations when it comes to any environment, right? And I'm not talking about just a building, the foundation of a building and what's required in order to build a building. There's a building, ICYL, it has foundations that, like, for instance, brick, cement, metal rods that's holding this building up. But at the same time, if we really look at it, what's so fascinating is that we want to look at building foundations in terms of what's keeping this engine, as we call it, this system, keep moving, where everyone who is here today, constantly, you guys are always coming to the masjid, where there's always great programs that get put together for us by this amazing masjid. You've got the board of directors working hard. You've got community members contributing and coming to the masajid. You've got volunteers, staff members. There's so much that goes on, which allows this beautiful masjid to have that strong foundation to be able to function, not just now, but even for our future generation and for children as well. Now, similarly, we have a wonderful guest here with us today. I'll do a quick bio, but then I would love to have him give a little word about himself too, just so we can better understand and know a little bit about his background as well. So today's guest, we have Brother Al-Jabbar with us. He's currently the Chief of Staff of Orange County Supervisor Doug Chafee, former trustee of Anaheim Unified High School District trustee, and he is the first Muslim elected in the Orange County Democratic State Party delegate and Orange County Democratic Party Central Committee member. That's a lot. For me, that's a lot. You've got such a resume, Brother Jabbar. So welcome to our community. And if you can also shed some light a little bit more, I know there's more to this. I'm just reading the title and the credentials. Why don't you introduce yourself as well to us?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. This is also my community. So I am local. I live in Placentia. So this is my masjid that I come for Jummah. So alhamdulillah, I'm glad that I'm here. I think this is a very important topic, right? And in terms of me, I think you gave the credentials, right? I always go back to the importance of us explaining, no matter who you are, especially if you're a minority, explain how you got there. And I think that's an inspiration for many of our young people, because when I got into it, initially, I didn't think that I would get to the position that I'm in, right? I got there because somebody told me, hey, you could get involved, and it's United States of America, land of opportunity. If you want to be someone, you can be that. And I think as immigrants, we come in and we think about it, but sometimes that is also a little bit of a challenge, because I see many faces in the audience. As immigrants, we also ask our young people, our kids, to get into the traditional pathways. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, right? Nobody really talks about getting into the political arena. And that could be because that our community is a little bit hesitant because of the experience that we had in our own countries back where we come from. Or sometimes we feel like why do we use a lot of our time in things that maybe is not going to be beneficial? So I got involved right after college. I think I got the political bug in me because of my dad. My dad was involved in politics back in Sri Lanka. I'm originally from Sri Lanka. And that gave me the bug to be more involved in the community. So even at the age of 10, 11, I was very active and involved in Sri Lanka. But when I migrated here, I always tell this story. I tell the young people, when I came here, I went to college. The first thing that I did was actually get involved with the local student government. I ran for student body president. I won that. And then I ran for student trustee. I represented the college at the district level. And then I went on to do my master's. While doing that, I was still involved in a lot of our student organizations. But once I finished my master's, I wanted to get involved in our community. And the automatic thing that I did was obviously get involved in the Sri Lankan community, right? Normally, that's what we do. We all gather in our own little communities and we get involved there. But I saw the importance of us getting involved in our city. I started getting involved in Anaheim. I used to live in Anaheim for a long time. I started getting involved in the civic engagement units. Like there was a West Anaheim Neighborhood Council. I got involved with them. And then eventually somebody asked me, why don't you run for school board? I ran for school board the first time. I lost. And then as a result, the community heard my message and we had an opening in the Anaheim Union High School District Board. And folks wanted me to apply for the position when there was an opening there. I applied, got appointed, and then I ran again for school board. And I ran twice, and I got reelected twice, and I was the first Muslim to be elected in Orange County. And I was also the first Sri Lankan American to be elected whole of United States. And that happened because I persevered, but also because I saw the importance of having a voice from the Muslim community in the political arena. So
thank you for sharing that. I mean, mashallah, that's such an accomplishment, and being the first Muslim to do that as well. I think that story needs to be shared with all of us, and especially the youngsters, right? One thing that I see, and I think this is something that's probably pretty relevant with a lot of us, relatable to a lot of us or a lot of our parents, when it comes to politics. For instance, being in America for about 30 years, I always see my dad not knowing who our local, city officials are, but they know from A to Z who the politicians and how the laws are put down and the rulings are in Afghanistan, because they're so attached to politics back home, right? They don't know what's happening. But I think having you and having you come here and being able to share your stories, I hope we can be more involved in today's politics here in America, because that will shape the Muslim community future as well. Now, you said a lot of important things, but I wanted to ask you, Brother Jabbar, is why is it important to build good foundations in the political arena, would you say?
I think it's very important. We right now are facing the repercussions of not being involved, right? If you can see the issues with our brothers and sisters going through with the genocide in Gaza, we as a Muslim community are unable to hold our elected officials accountable. Partly because I think that, we were active, but we were not active strategically, right? The other side was very strategic in getting involved from local government all the way to the top. They start building connections when these politicians are actually at the school board level, right? And they groom them and they support them and they get them elected to the next office. And then so they have a relationship with them where ultimately when they go in front of them and say, hey, I want you to vote this way, they do listen. So the foundation that we got to build as a community is to make sure that we are building those relationships at a local level. And when I say local level, even before we think about the president and the congressional and Senate or state office, I would say we need to begin at the school board level. And I'll tell you why it's important. I was a school board member for 10 years in Anaheim Union High School District, and there were issues that happened at the local level to Muslim families, Muslim students, that sometimes it wouldn't have bubbled up if there was no Muslim representation to actually question that. I'll give you a perfect example. We had a student who actually had the sister whose hijab was pulled by a local high school football player. So the football player was a very popular player, and the sister's hijab was pulled. It became an issue, but it didn't bubble up or raise up to the level of decision makers because they thought, well, it's not an issue. But the parents knew that there was a Muslim school board member, right? And they reached out to me. Actually, not the parent, but the parent's friend reached out to me and said, did you know that there's an issue like this that happened in your local high school? I called the superintendent. We had a conversation, and I told what the importance of a hijab is to a sister, right? And it became an issue to the point where they brought in the students' parents, both sides, right? And they had a conversation and educated the other parent to let them know why, I think I still remember the parent said, the Muslim parent said, pulling the hijab is equivalent to you raping my kid. And that was huge for the other parent to understand that. And they knew that it was a big deal, right? So things like that happened. And then there was a shooting which happened in France. It happened internationally, but locally at a school during a session, one of the students had argued with the teacher, and teacher had said something very not appropriate, right? What happened there, it was brought to my attention as a school board member. And for the first time in any school district in Orange County, I arranged our local imam to come to the school and give a 101 on Islam to all the principals in the school district, right? That allowed the school administrators to know the importance and the understanding of Islam so that they were able to understand and put it in context when things were happening in schools. So the other part is also your local school, local city council, right? When we go to get a permit to build a masjid, or when we want to expand our masjid, we have to have and build those relationships with our local city council members so that we can make that happen easily. And that's the importance of building that foundation. And I think it resonates well when it's a international issue, but I also want you to think through why it's important to build it at a local level.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing those stories, because that really helps us understand, through your stories, it helps us connect and hopefully encourages us, and see the other side of why it's so important to have somebody like yourself, or maybe somebody here, or someone who's looking to get in the political arena, why they should take steps and be in office, inshallah. The next question I had for you is, what advice would you give someone who's wanting to build a strong foundation in the political career or in a political career?
I think, I would say start young, right? Encourage your daughters and your sons to get involved at a local level. And that could be your local high school. I started getting involved in student government because I loved the governance process, and I loved the idea of getting involved in decision making locally. But you don't have to have that passion. But I would also say that encourage them to get involved. You could become a doctor, you could become an engineer, but try to get involved in your local community, right? Encourage them. And I tell this as an immigrant too. I still remember, I know in my audience, I have my mom here and my wife here, my mother-in-law here. So they know the story is that with my dad, although he was involved in politics, I remember this discussion where when I said I wanted to get involved in local government or, local politics, my dad's first question is, why are you wasting your time? You should be focusing on studies, right? Number one. And then the second question was, are you getting paid for it? right?
But he was in politics though, right?
What?
So he was in
He
politics.
was in politics,
But you're
right?
questioning why you're going.
Exactly. And the reason that he did it, because I think, again, it's the immigrant mindset, right? We come in and we say we want our kids to do well. That means get your education done, and then focus on building a family and focus on providing your family, right? But they don't think through the lens of how important it is as a community to get involved until an issue like Palestine comes in. And then you go, we don't have a seat at the table, right? For us to have a seat at the table, you got to start young. And the reason that I say is to start building that, you got to get involved with your local political party, right? I started getting involved with the Orange County Young Democrats. I was their communication director for a while. And then as a result, it gave me the opportunity to meet local elected officials, right? They got to know me as not only the communication director, but they also got to know me as a student leader in the Democratic Party. As a result, when there was a city commission position opened up, I put in the application, but I didn't have the thought to give a call to a council member and say, can you appoint me? But fortunately, because I was involved with the Young Democrats, the council member called me and said, I have a commission appointment. I'd like to appoint you. Are you interested? Right? He didn't care if I was Muslim or not, but he knew and he has seen my face in the Democratic Party, and he wanted somebody to represent the party at the city commission level. So I became a commissioner, and I served as a commissioner for 8 years for the city of Anaheim. And that gave me a platform and a title. So wherever I go, they would say, oh, there's Al-Jabbar, commissioner for city of Anaheim. I want you to think through the importance of that. The more they hear other names, not a Stephen, not a Johnson, not a Philip, but they hear Al-Kamali Jabbar or Wali or, Samiha, that's my wife's name. So once they hear that, they're going to know that our community is involved. At that point, now we're at the table. We're getting recognition to the point where we can have those conversations with our local council members, right? When it comes to decision-making process. So I would encourage even our sisters to get involved, because alhamdulillah, right now we're getting a lot of our sisters getting involved in leadership, right? That's a good thing. And in the Democratic Party, we're seeing a lot of that happening. It's important, but I'm going to tell our adults at the table to make sure that we encourage our young people to go out there and get involved.
Perfect. Thank you. And I love what you just said too. When you're going somewhere, and anywhere that we go, it's like going to the doctor's office. Yep. Right. When we get a booklet, what do? We always try to find the Muslim doctor, or a name that resonates with us. It's like, all right, because this person, are they someone who will be speaking Arabic, or will they know how to speak Farsi or Pashto? Regardless, even if they do speak it or not, but you kind of look into who's the Muslim physician. And I really like the idea that, what you just gave is that how important and how powerful it is to have somebody from the community represent us. And that's big. We really don't realize it unless something happens. That's usually the time when things kind of are put into perspective. But that's very important.
Well, if you also touch base on something else, I forgot to touch this. The reason that I say that is it's important. It's don't just get involved just to bring the Muslim perspective, or hey, I want to just deal with the mosque issues. Deal with issues that are concerning you as a citizen in your city. When I got involved, I started getting involved with the West Anaheim neighborhood, and I started getting involved in community organizing. I started taking leadership in little things as putting trying to get a speed bump in a school zone, right? That's huge for the community. There was a school, and there was, cars would speed through the area. So what we did was, as a community, we organized, and I took the lead in knocking on doors to get signatures to put a speed bump. And that neighborhood now has multiple speed bumps. Now, what the community doesn't know is that they don't look at me as this is Al-Jabbar Muslim. they're looking at it as Al-Jabbar, our community leader who took the opportunity to lead to put speed bumps, right? That gives you an opportunity to be more influential in the community. I think that's very important, and that's something that we forget sometimes.
And thank you for bringing that up. My next question is just kind of piggyback on that, is the importance of civic engagement, right? That goes both, and I know you talked about how it's so important to start very young, but what about for, parents or immigrants who come to this country? And I'm sure you've also come as an immigrant, right? Maybe younger?
Yep, I was 17 when I migrated here.
Okay. But let's say someone who's in their, 30s, 40s, what would you recommend or what would you suggest for them?
I would still say I know you're going to have the first priority of building your life here, right? I would say focus on that because that's very important. Get yourself settled. Once you're getting yourself, or while you're getting yourself settled, you're going to be meeting key people in your community. Build those relationships. When you pick up a card, a person that you meet, build that relationship. And that's something that I tell our young people all the time is that, when you get a business card from a politician or, matter of fact, anybody else, right? We sometimes take that and put it in our pocket, forget about it. Try to build a relationship of sending an email, having that conversation, and try to build on that. That's not going to not only help you professionally, but for civic engagement, it makes a big difference. Take the opportunity when there is an issue in your community, be it Yobelinda or Placentia or Brea or wherever. If there is some type of an issue that's going to affect your city, pay attention to that and then go to city council and take the 3 minutes and speak. If it's a county issue, come to the county board of supervisors and speak, because this relates back to the other issue that I mentioned. The more they hear your name, the more that the politicians who are making the decisions are going to say, like, you know what, this gentleman is very active, and they're going to connect you with the community. So when it comes to an issue that we want to make a decision on, right, you can be the face of our community in meeting with that politician. I've seen Dr. Ahmed Sobo come to the county supervisors meeting. I mean, we had an issue with the resolution where he came in and he actually spoke out, right? But we saw other young people who were there, and that gave the opportunity for the elected leaders to see that our community is engaged. More often than not, and I'm going to be a little bit more, tough on this with some of the folks, and I know it's been recorded, so people will listen. Politicians use our community to raise money. They know that our community is successful and successful business people, and our folks give and write big checks to our politicians, right? That's a way to get in front of a politician. But let's do it as a community, because when it happens, I'll tell you, our local congressional folks, and I know many people in our community have written big checks to them, but when it came to the issue of Palestine, none of them picked up their phone to discuss this issue with us. They sided with the other side, right? So we as a community also need to be strategic on how we utilize our community's funds, which is your funds, right? In order to be strategic in finding that influence. So this, I'm going to say, we also need to send a message to them by saying that if you're not there for us, we're not going to be there for you. Let's not invite them to our community, iftars and Eid, all of that, if they're not going to be standing with us at issues that concerns us. A lot of them, they're very good at taking that picture with a gentleman or a sister who is a hijabi or a gentleman who's wearing the cap, and they'll put it on their social media to show that, oh yeah, I'm good with this community, right? It's our opportunity to utilize our organizing power to send that message to them as well. So I want to say that we want to be active, but at the same time, let's be strategic in how we utilize our power.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because I don't think most of us or a lot of us would really know that information if you have not just shared it with us either. So we appreciate that. So I was going to ask you, what level of political involvement is necessary for a community? And then the second question is, what should we avoid or disregard to prevent future regression?
So I think I'll start with the last part, right? A lot of our community members are now disheartened with or they want to disengage with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party because of the decisions that are being made or not being made because of the issue of Gaza and Palestine, right? We don't want to be that community that steps back and lose our seat at the table. We have a big decision to make when it comes to the November election, when it comes to who we vote for. Both choices are tough for us as a community, right? We want to send a message to President Biden, but at the same time, I don't know if former President Trump is the right person to vote as a Muslim community, right? So we have to be strategic in how we engage, not only at the national level, but also at the local level. So one of the first things that I'm going to say is that I know a lot of people are passionate about this upcoming election. Don't stay back and don't disengage from the political issue that's coming up. We got to be there to make sure that we're questioning folks, and we need to hold them accountable, and let's participate in the process, right? And in terms of at what level we need to be engaged, we need to be engaged at all levels. I'm going to be biased to say that, let's start engaging at the school board level, but let's start also engaging at the city council level. We don't have staff members. That's something that I want to say is like, I'm a chief of staff for one of the supervisors. So we have 5 supervisors for Orange County. My boss is the supervisor for North Orange County, which includes Anaheim, Placentia, Brea, La Habra, and Fullerton. And we call it the 6th floor. At the county, we have, at the 6th floor, we have all 5 board of supervisors. We only have 2 Muslims who serve in staff level in that political decision-making area, right? I'm the chief of staff, and there's another policy advisor for Supervisor Sarmiento. We also need to make sure that our young people are engaging in terms of staff level, right? If they don't want to run for elected office, they could actually utilize their position to engage and be a staff member to one of the elected officers. That gives our community an opportunity to be influential in decision-making process as well. There are a lot of examples that I can give you, but I know we're a little bit short on time, but maybe engage it with folks having questions.
Sure, yeah. We'll leave that for the Q&A session. Now, importance of, we talked about being involved in the community. What about being involved with, for instance, your local, police department, the fire department, school districts, just everything that's around us? How important is that? Because I know there's times where I've personally seen where, as an institution, we have our own limitations based on who we engage with, but how important is it? Or in return, is it not beneficial if we step back and not take action or not be involved with other organizations or institutions that are around us as well?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think we have to, as a community, start engaging with other communities as well, right? I think Yobalanda, our masjid, is doing a great job in terms of having interfaith relationships, but that also goes to government organizations, right? I know we invite the chief here, we invite the police chief and the fire chief to come by. Those are good things to do, but I think as individuals, we also have a responsibility to start having those where when you meet them at a local event or a local, park or anywhere, introduce yourself and tell them, thank you for your service, right? And say that you are associated with the local masjid or the local community, which puts us in the map, and you start building those relationships at a very lower level. And that's important because when it comes to a larger scale issue, they're going to side with us if they know or if they have that familiarity, right? I know most of our young brothers and sisters were involved in the UCI encampment and the protests that followed. it allowed me to, alhamdulillah, because I was in that position as chief of staff, to put in a call to the sheriff's department chief of staff and kind of ask them what was going on and trying to see if there was somebody who had a medical condition who was arrested in the protest. Allowed me to kind of call and say, hey, can we take care of that sister, give her the medication, make sure that everything is taken care of. So those things are important when it comes to building those relationships and having influence. Once you show your face, and I think, inviting folks to come to the Eid prayer, right? When we have 10,000, 15,000 people, not only in the masjid, but at a football stadium, that sends a message to them. Politicians look at that and say that that's votes for us, right? They're going to take a look at it and say, this is an important community. But the flip side is, we got to make sure that we are organized. We can show the numbers, but not go to vote, right? But we can show the numbers and not be involved when CARE sends out a action item saying like, hey, can you call your local congressperson, or can you show up to a meeting? If you're not showing up there, then that's pointless. So I would say, build those relationships, but also listen to the guide where people from CARE or the CARE PAC or even, our imams, when they put out the call to say like, hey, pick up the phone and call your local congressional person, follow through on that, because that's very important. That's how they're going to know that our community is active and engaged. And that's how they're going to listen, right? So.
Absolutely. And as said, you mentioned CARE. We got Sister Alia as well, who's very well known in the policy world. So she does an amazing job in the community in that regards. And then for those that are not registered to vote, please note that here at ICYL, we do register folks to vote. There's a table right to my right. So if you're looking to be registered to vote, please go ahead and visit us afterwards. Wanted to ask you, Brother Jabbar, how would you evaluate the future of the Muslim community when it comes to progressing in the political arena, would you say? How do you see the trajectory of the community and where it's going?
We're a sleeping giant that that doesn't know the power of what we have, right? I think, I say the other side, and I think all of you know who they are. They are so strategic in having staffers in different areas in the decision-making process. They're so strategic in building relationship when people are running for office. They're so strategic in utilizing their funds appropriately, right? Our community has still not got to that point, not because there are people who are not trying. It's because we're lacking in that engagement. So one thing that I'm going to ask everyone to do is this election cycle and these upcoming election cycle is going to be not only the November election, but I'm talking about the next election cycle in 2 years, is going to be very important to the Muslim community. We're going to have a lot of Muslims who are energized because of the issue, who have stepped up and who are going to run for office. Support them, right? And I'll tell you my story. When I decided to run, alhamdulillah, there were some of our Muslim brothers and sisters who got involved and said like, hey, I want to do a fundraiser for you. But that didn't come the initial time I decided to run, because they didn't see themselves as one of ours could represent, right? Now we've broken the mold with Sister Farah Khan being the mayor of Irvine, right? We have another council member, Amazara in Fullerton. We've broken the mold and we've showed that our community could not only support a candidate, but we could also elect a candidate. But I think it's very important that we organize ourselves and coalesce around a message to move things along. I think in the future, our community is going to be very, very engaged think you saw the election results in Michigan, where it was an organized structure where we sent a message to the Democratic Party and the president to say that we're not going to vote for you in the primary, right? And we showed the numbers. So I think that's an important message to send, but let's also not forget the ultimate goal, which is to be at the table when decision is being made. More often, we get disengaged because we say like, oh, you know what, the president's not supporting the Palestinian cause, so we shouldn't support the Democratic Party, or we're not going to be a part of the Democratic Party, or we're not going to be a part of the Republican Party. By doing that, we're going to do a disservice to ourselves and our community. Let's not do that. Let's be involved and get that seat at the table. One of the things that I tell is, regardless of what the president is doing in terms of his decision, there's a large contingency of Muslims who are actually serving in this administration. And they're doing the work, the back end, to pressurize and influence to make things happen, right? So we have to understand that part. Same goes to the Republican Party. Unfortunately, we don't have that many Muslims participating in the Republican Party, but which is, obviously because of issues. But I think now you're going to get a lot of them participating, and we need to send that message to that other side as well. So we are a sleeping giant, and I think we're waking up. And inshallah, I think we'll be able to, I would say, in the next few years, we will elect I think we have Attorney General in Minnesota, right? Keith Ellison.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, he's a Muslim. He might have the opportunity to run for governor someday, right? And at some point, he might get tapped to serve in the cabinet at the United States level. So we have that power. We have the opportunity to not only elect people, but appoint people to judge positions, right? We have a judge who was appointed by President Biden, right? A Muslim, the first time to a federal seat. We have local judges who are getting elected in state level. So we have the opportunity now. Just don't disengage. Let's try to make sure that we push and build this momentum. Good thing about, I say a good thing is that, at the end of the day, whatever happened, may Allah protect and, guide all our folks in Gaza. But that issue had a lot of people in the United States really get engaged in politics, especially our Muslims. I'm also the secretary for the CARE PAC, the local political action committee for California. And I see the engagement level from our Muslim when we're doing fundraisers for, Congressman Jamal Bowman. By the way, if you have an opportunity, and I shouldn't, it's 501(c)(3) protected.
Yep.
But, at the end of the day, get engaged, right? We have Jamal Bowman who's running in New York, and his primary is coming up. Our Muslims are very engaged in that election. Let's get involved in that, right? And you may be in California, but you have the opportunity to either donate to them or make phone calls. They do have the opportunity where you can actually sit in at your house, take a couple hours and call New York. They have a system where you could engage and say that, you're a Muslim who is trying to help in a campaign in New York. That sends a big message. So let's try to engage and get involved in that process at a local level. At a campaign level, it's very important. I actually ran a city council campaign in Anaheim. We won that race by 78 votes. We actually elected a Hispanic gentleman named Dr. Jose Moreno to Anaheim City Council. I was a campaign manager for his campaign, but it was at that time we elected Trump, and they recognized our campaign, and I got the national award for the Campaign Manager of the Year award. And at that time, I said, a Muslim campaign manager managed a campaign of a Latino gentleman, and we collaborated to make sure that we elect a very important seat in Anaheim. That happened, and people hear that name, hear the collaboration, and our community is going to be, inshallah, very, very influential in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that amazing and great, exciting news to hear from you. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I will give about 10 minutes or so for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask Brother Al-Jabbar, please, this is the floor for you to ask. If there's any questions that you have, you may do that. Yes, brother. Yes.
Mashallah, we're seeing that happen right now. And I was actually recently working with CARE, where they want to build, even starting at the high school level, right? They want to train young people. So I think they're engaging right now in building a program to get young people to learn about, how to get engaged in high school level and run, because that's one way of training our young people, right? For our adults, what I would say is use your specialty, right? If you're a doctor or if you're a social worker, right? Use your specialty to show that our community is engaged at all levels. Once you specialize in the area that you're at, don't just talk about, when you're in front of an elected official, don't go talk just about the Palestinian issue or the Kashmir issue or the issue in Uyghurs in China. Go talk about healthcare. Go talk about education. Go talk about mental health, right? As a Muslim, when you're engaged at that level, we're not going to be cooped in, or we're not going to be put in that one box of saying that this community only comes to us when there is an issue related to Muslims, right? We are coming to you to talk about education. Right now, there's a lot of issues with budget cuts at the state level for local schools and local programs. As a community, let's look at that and start engaging our local elected officials and talk about those issues as well. Say that that's important to our community as well, right? There are a lot of organizations like CARE, like CARE PAC, right? By the way, we're changing our CARE PAC name to a different one. You'll hear about that. Once those organizations come to you and say like, hey, we want you to get involved, I hear this a lot, right? Friday sermon, you get that. Everybody says, Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah, let's go. But then when you come out there, nobody's there. And wallahi, this was a good example today. We had an Arab American Civic Council up front. I know the gentleman. He was actually having little cards to get the Muslim community to sign a little one which said, I pledge to vote, right? And I've done it, but I went to the table and I was signing, and he said, man, this is a tough crowd. I can't get anybody to sign. Once you do that, they're going to get discouraged too, right? So I want you to take that 1 minute to go support that organization. When they ask you, money, resources, alhamdulillah, that's needed, because wherever you go, I mean, we were talking, I know Dr. Sobo actually has a program, and I went and spoke to the young people that he's, mentoring. He has about 12.
Young Inspires, yes.
What is it called?
Young Inspires.
Yeah, Young Inspires. And he is doing that at a local level here. I actually went and spoke to those young gentlemen. They're very engaged, right? So at a local level, we have to start doing that. But for you, right, who has the opportunity to write a check to support an organization, do that. But at the same time, show up, right? I promise you, we'll start talking to folks to serve more chai and more food, because that gets people there too. But at the end of the day, you gotta show support by not only the money, but also by, taking that extra steps to being at that event. So a good thing is, if you see all the protest rallies that we're having right now, mashallah, you're getting a lot of people, right? Now, thing that internally we're talking as organizations is, how do we get these folks to get engaged in voting and moving forward? So hopefully I answered your question.
Perfect. We'll ask a couple of more questions. I think it's going to be prayer time pretty soon, inshallah. I think I saw a sister raise her hand. Anybody?
I got to know some of the folks on the other side who started at the lower level, right? And they started by supporting candidates who are running for school board, right? They're building those relationships. Mashallah, we have CARE, which does a lot of organizational thinking for us as a community, right? And strategically supporting. So that's one organization. On the political front, we have CARE PAC, which actually does a lot of work with our political folks in trying to engage them at that level. So those are organizations which you should support, and you should actually start, like Arab American Civic Council. They did a great job in Anaheim. For the longest time, they were actually trying to name Little Arabia, which couldn't happen, but they saw the opportunity. They built on that work that they did for many years. And then alhamdulillah, just last year, we passed it. And I just engaged a local council member just last week. They put up banners calling it Little Arabia, right? So we're having momentum. There are organizations which specialize in different things, but just keep an eye out for what they do and support that. And I think that's going to be the key. In terms of strategic thinking, we have some organizations like CARE and everybody coming together and trying to see how to engage and how to support and how to coalesce, right? Because at the end of the day, for lack of, sometimes we are fragmented. Sometimes we don't unify in our message, right? I saw that we were trying to engage a local senator who won Katie Porter's district for congressional seat. In that particular election, I was up till about 1 o'clock talking to the senator, trying to figure out a statement that he could put to bring our Muslim community together. But then that decision-making was kind of tough because we had another group which had all or nothing, right? So we have to be strategic in how we engage our local electeds. But before we do that, I think as a community, we need to come together to build that infrastructure as well. So, and we're doing that, inshallah.
Perfect. Now, brother, sir, you had your hand up.
So I would say there's a good group of people actually engaging the local parties, right? I'm not seeing that at the local Republican Party, but at least at the local Democratic Party, we're seeing a lot of engagement from our Muslims, Muslim young leaders who are actually engaging that. But at a community level, I think showing that, I think the last election we had folks who were, it was a caravan from here, right, went to vote, right? That's a good opportunity to show everybody that our community is engaged. But to build on that momentum, let's start having conversations like this. And I would have loved to see like a lot more seats filled, right? This is where it needs to happen, right? I think having more and more of these discussions will help us engage. And I hope that we're collecting everybody's name and phone number and email, and then making sure that we build a database, right? Making sure that we're engaging from an organizational standpoint to send you the information and get you motivated. Because more often what we do, I think CARE does a wonderful job of collecting that information and sending out emails and asking you to engage. I don't know if you've seen how many people engage, but at the end of the day, as an organization, we can do our part. But I think folks who are here, you're here because you're very interested in the topic, right? So when you go out there and have these conversations at your local Eid party or local family gathering, talk about it and tell them to have that conversation. When we have when the ballots come out, right? Usually now the ballots come out about a month ahead. Start having a gathering to do a ballot party, right? I did that for my campaign where we engaged the neighbors to say, hey, come by and start voting, right? We bring them in and we vote as a block. That's a good opportunity to talk about. I think it's also important for us to organize events on different topics, right? Because sometimes people kind of engage in different topics, and you might get a different segment of group who might come in to talk about it. And at that gathering, we can actually talk about civic engagement, right? That's an opportunity to do. So we have a lot of grassroots efforts that we have to do, but I think it's also a way of building on this momentum for not only the election in November, but beyond that, right? We have a very important election coming up, the gubernatorial election, right after the presidential election. California is going to elect one of the governors, right? After Newsom is done, we're going to have an open seat where a lot of people are going to be running. That's an opportunity as a Muslims to show our support and coalesce our support around one candidate and show that candidate that we got them elected, right? It's an opportunity for us to show. I'm actually embarking on a project to try to see where we have Muslim votes in each cities. And let's try to make a difference in the city to show that if there was a margin of victory of 100 votes or 200 votes, that came because of our Muslim votes, right? I want to show that, inshallah. So we have little work to do, but hopefully we can start at a small level and move forward.
Awesome. And I would say, I think one more question and that's it. I think 3 minutes we'll conclude, inshallah. Yes, Sister. Go ahead.
Two things that you could do. Individually, you could actually pick up the phone to the local campaign office and say that you want to get engaged and start building that relationship, right? That's a very good question because that's something that we don't do. So as a person who's a hijabi calling and saying like, look, I want to engage you politically and ask these questions, they'll be very interested in doing, especially because they're running against an incumbent, right? And number two is, as an organization, we invite them to our community and ask those questions. Right now, CarePack is doing a lot of that. When we have local fundraisers, that person's there at somebody's house, right? It's an opportunity to ask them questions. They're coming in because we actually invited them to support them. But if we don't know, there are many organizations which actually have a good idea of as to where they stand on issues. So we could definitely do that. But engage them locally. That's, I think, a great opportunity for us to have our community's face in there too.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Jabbar, for coming here. Any last advice or anything that's last takeaways before we conclude, inshallah?
I'm open. If you want, I could give you my card and my phone number. You could write it down if you want to. It's 714-609-8646. Again, it's 714-609-8646. Anytime, I'm willing, especially our young people, if they want to get an opportunity to get an internship or be mentored, I'll be happy to support. And I think we got to build somewhere there. So, and I'll be happy to engage anybody. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, for those that are here, please remember every month we do have a program leading till November. Again, we want to thank Islamic Center of Yorba Linda Masjid and Islamic Shura Council of Southern California for putting this wonderful program together. And obviously our wonderful guest speaker, Brother Al-Jabbar, for being here today.